Hey everyone, my name's James Peterson. In this video, we're going to be talking about developing good habits for working in teams. Our focus is on creating a collaborative team environment where team members are focused on the objective, a safe environment where team members can speak freely, an environment with mutual respect, where team members communicate with civility, recognizing the value that each team member brings to the team. Now, the habits that we're talking about are pretty straightforward. Little tools or reminders, common sense, a lot you already know, perhaps a few new ideas, perhaps a few ideas you disagree with. My main objective here is for you to take these ideas as a starting point, a kind of checklist. Understand why I think these habits are important, then develop your own style, build on these habits, reflect on your own teamwork skills, and continuously improve. So what are these habits? Simply set up the room, build relationships, discuss the objective, discuss expectations, do the work. We'll look at the improvement cycle, plan, do, check, act. And finally, at the very end of the whole project, team wrap-up. Let me just say that your first meeting with your team may be quite different from later meetings. In your first meeting, all of your time may be spent here, mostly discussing the objective and expectations. However, in later meetings, these 4 steps will likely just take 5 minutes. In later meetings, most of your time is spent here doing the work. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a moment and talk about each of these habits. First, set up the room. Typically in the classroom, we're sitting in rows. When you have a team meeting, take control of the room. Move tables, move chairs, adjust the environment to ensure you can have a good discussion. Consider other equipment as well, projectors, computers. Make sure everything is set up. Over time, you might reflect on seating positions and how these positions affect communication. Many of my students report that room setup number 1 here feels like there's a power difference, perhaps a job interview. Room setup number 2 feels more relaxed. It's easier to turn your eyes away. The key point here is that room setup affects communication. Think about team presentations. Here are 2 setups. The first one, it feels like the presenter wants the audience to participate. The second one, not so much. A boardroom. Usually this kind of setup is used for 2 sides in a negotiation, the union on one side and the management on the other, or the customer on one side and the sales team on the other. Add to this seating positions. Commonly, the lead negotiator is in the center. 2 and 3 are on either side, and number 4 and 5's nearest the door. And the counterpart on the other side of the table is in the same seating order. This is not meant to be prescriptive here. There are different ways to set up a room. My only point is room setup affects communication, and so it needs to be considered. This is also true with video conferencing. Adjust your camera, lighting, and especially your microphone. I have 3 microphones set up right now. I'm on microphone 2, and now I'm on microphone number 1. Quite a bit worse, so let me switch back. So set up the room and set up the equipment to improve the quality of communication. The next habit is build relationships. So the key point here is to get to know your colleagues. You need to remember names. When a new person joins the team, always make sure you have introductions. The objective here is to create an environment where people can speak freely, and people speak more freely when they know and respect each other. Now, in your first meeting with a brand new team, do a round of introductions. You might take 10 to 15 minutes to get to know each other. As everyone introduces themselves, make sure you keep track of everyone's names. In later meetings, have a friendly chat, checking in. Introduce new team members, and then you can move on to business and be more focused on the business at hand. The next habit is discuss the objective. This can be a discussion about the objective of the project or the objective of the meeting. The challenge is that different people often have a different understanding of the objective. Sometimes the project sponsor is not quite sure what they want, and often every team member hears something different anyways. The reason we hear something different is language is ambiguous. Take a look at this example. Here the boss says, "I need this report on Friday." It seems like a simple statement, not very ambiguous at all, but everyone brings their own worldview and understands something completely different. Thursday, 5 p.m., Friday, 10 a.m., Wednesday, Friday, 11:59 p.m. I've heard every answer. Language is ambiguous. This is often why people who attend the same meeting have a different understanding of what happened. Here's another example. I'm having a barbecue at my house at 6 o'clock p.m. What time are you going to come? Despite giving a precise time, 6 o'clock, I hear my students give a wide range of answers, 5:45, 6 o'clock, 6:15, 7 o'clock, even 8 o'clock. We hear the same words, but we have our own interpretations based on what we've learned about the world, what is expected. And how about this? Here we have a young couple. She says it's cold in here. What does this mean? Is this a statement just about the temperature, or is this a request? Probably this is some sort of request, like close the window or turn up the heater, or maybe even stop playing video games. Yes, it is cold is probably not the answer she's expecting. So here's the key point. We have to take guesses about what people truly mean. Our guesses are sometimes right, and our guesses are sometimes wrong. So this is why people often have a different understanding. So let's think about the very first meeting with your team. Discussing the objective of the project is critically important and might take up a lot of the meeting. You need to get everyone on the same page. Make sure that your team members have the same understanding about the objective, scope, and details of the project. As you're having the discussion, you'll frequently find issues that come up and more info is needed. If you need clarification, it's best to find out early. So that was your first team meeting, but what about later team meetings? We'll spend 2 minutes to talk about the objective of the meeting. For example, we have 2 things to discuss today. The next habit is discussing expectations. Here we're talking about each team member's expectations. How are we going to go about completing this project? What are the goals of each team member? What are the rules for the team? How is the team going to communicate? How often are we going to meet? This discussion is important because team members often have different expectations. Take a look here. In school, you often find teams like this. She's thinking, I hope we get at least 90% on this assignment. He's thinking, let's just finish this assignment fast. These different expectations can lead to conflict on the team. By making expectations explicit, the conflicts can be discussed and resolved. In the team's first meeting, it's useful to have a long discussion about expectations. How are we going to complete this project? The results of this discussion is often formalized in a team charter. The team charter describes the mission, core values, and roles of team members. It also lays out the rules that the team has agreed to and speaks to how those rules would be enforced. In later team meetings, the discussion might be, how do you want to go about doing things today? Shall we brainstorm? Do you want to divide up into small groups? Also, you might discuss team administration issues. Can we move these meetings to Thursdays? Or, sorry everyone, I suddenly have an appointment at 4:30 today, so I'll need to leave about 10 minutes early. I hope that's okay. The idea is to make your expectations explicit at the start of the meeting. So let's review. You're meeting with your team for the very first time. I think all of your time is probably going to be spent right here. So let's take a look. Set up the room. As usual, you need to adjust the furniture and equipment as needed. Building relationships. If this is your first time to meet, you need to do a round of introductions. Take 10 minutes or so. When people know each other well, they'll speak more freely. Discuss the objective. You need to discuss the objective of the project in detail. Different people have a different understanding. In school, this means read the assignment and carefully discuss what is required. Make sure the whole team knows. In business, this means listening to the customer or project sponsor carefully and trying to truly understand the objective of the project. In business, the objective and scope of the project is often formalized in some sort of contract or terms of reference. Finally, discuss expectations of each team member. Discuss how you're going to go about completing the project. What is the mission of the team? Core values, rules. Often, this discussion is formalized in a team charter. So that was your very first meeting with your team. But how about later team meetings, your second meeting, your third meeting, your fourth meeting? Well, these 4 steps should be a habit, but only take about 5 minutes or so. Let's take a look. So first, set up the room. As usual, adjust furniture and equipment as needed. Build relationships, have a friendly conversation. Introduce new team members. People need to feel comfortable with each other in order to maximize communication. Discuss the objective. This is discussing the objective of the meeting. For example, today we have to complete 2 things. And discuss expectations. So discuss how the meeting will be run and discuss any administration issues such as scheduling of future meetings. So that's the 4 steps. Just 5 minutes, and now you're ready to start doing the work. So that ends part 1 of this video. In your next team meeting, try to put these ideas into practice. Set up the room, build relationships, discuss the objective, discuss expectations. And then come back and watch part 2 of this video. In part 2, we're going to talk about doing the work. So plan, do, check, and act. And then how to wrap up your team project.